Here's what's coming up in the Category 5.tv newsroom. Robbie called it last week when he said we may start to see legitimate companies moving content onto the dark web in light of recent government sanctions. Well, now BBC News announced it has launched a dark web Tor mirror of its news service. The Bloodhound supersonic car has completed its first drive across the Hakskeen dry lake in South Africa. 2 reports published in the last few months show that malware operators are experimenting with using wave audio files to hide malicious code, and Google built an advanced computer that has achieved quantum supremacy for the first time, surpassing the performance of conventional devices. Stick around, the full details are coming up later in the show.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. Robbie called it last week when he said we may start to see legitimate companies moving content onto the dark web in light of recent government sanctions. Well, now BBC News announced it has launched a dark web Tor mirror of its news service. The Tor browser is privacy-focused software used to access the dark web. The browser can obscure who is using it and what data is being accessed, which could help people avoid government surveillance and censorship. In the BBC's case, it comes about as countries including China, Iran, and Vietnam have tried to block their citizens from accessing the BBC News website or programs. Instead of visiting bbc.co.uk/news or bbc.com/news, users of the Tor browser can visit the new BBC News v2vjtpsyu.onion website. Visiting this web address will not work in a regular web browser. The dark web copy of the BBC News website will be the international edition, as seen from outside the UK. It will include foreign language services such as BBC Arabic, BBC Persian, and BBC Russian. But UK-only content and services such as BBC iPlayer will not be accessible due to broadcast rights. So, you were right.
There you go. Whoa,
Yeah.
Where did Robbie go?
Yeah, I was right. Happy Halloween!
Yeah.
So you absolutely
Called it. Yeah.
So, and this will happen with more websites and more.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is just the first of many.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great step in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for journalism, right? Because you have companies like CBC, they give directions to, if you want to report something like as a secret, they instruct you how to do Tor, but to have that directly linked in, to have their own site, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So
The way I see it is, right now the dark web has a very dark aura to it.
Right.
People think of the dark web as hackers,
Right.
malicious stuff, pornography, and various things that, you know, guns and drugs.
explosions.
That's the dark web.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's get some legitimate services on the dark web to demonstrate that this is a powerful technology that can be used for good.
Yeah.
They should have called it something else. It shouldn't have been called the dark web. It makes it sound scary and shady. They should have called it like the alternate web.
It's Tor.
Yeah.
It's onion.
Is it just Tor?
Yeah.
Onion!
Onion.
Yeah.
What if you don't like onions? Just tomato.
I love this. I love it, and I think that we'll see a huge shift toward that in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what happens is governments creating sanctions to say, hey, we're no longer going to allow business from United States to Venezuela.
Right.
Well, now, with Adobe cutting off access to Venezuelan customers who have already paid,
Exactly.
the dark web is the correct answer.
Exactly.
And BBC already sees that.
Yeah.
Way to go, BBC.
Good job, guys.
I gotta push buttons here. I'll probably lose the mask for the rest of the show. But so those of you who are watching, just all in good fun for
Well, happy
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a good thing we don't have an HR department.
Yeah.
The Bloodhound supersonic car has completed its first drive across the Hakskeen dry lake in South Africa. Pilot Andy Green took the jet-powered vehicle on a gentle 100-mile-per-hour shakedown test run on Friday. Bloodhound is in Northern Cape for high-speed trials as it works towards an assault on the land speed record next year. That mark of 763 miles per hour was set 22 years ago, also by Andy Green, in the Thrust SSC car. Thrust broke the sound barrier in the process, the first and only car to have achieved the feat. Bloodhound will be run at progressively faster and faster speeds in the coming days as engineers seek to verify its design and the proper working of its subsystems. With the Eurofighter jet engine on board, it should be capable of reaching 500 to 600 miles per hour this year. The addition of a rocket motor in 2020 ought to then take the car over 800 miles per hour. Engineers will be looking in particular at how much drag Bloodhound is producing in these trials. This will determine the level of thrust that they will need from the rocket. They will also be checking that the parachutes and brakes can bring the car safely to a stop at the end of a high-speed run. Up to a dozen runs are planned between now and mid-November, with the first 6 taking the speed up in steps of 50 miles per hour.
That's astonishing and scary. I'm losing my head.
I wonder, like, I understand that, like, the desire to do this, but then, I mean, Andy Green's already done it. Like, I feel like
he's got to go faster.
Now he's doing it
Gotta
again.
go fast.
Like, come on, 1,200 kilometers an hour.
Well, I'm just wondering because, like, it's cool to say, yeah, fastest car, but I'm just wondering, what's the practical use of this? Like, is there any way that scientists are like, we need a fast car? I mean, like, I would definitely take this to work. Like, if I got to work in, like, 10 minutes, that'd be awesome. But
to be honest, I think it'll just be the design. Well, because they're going to be checking to see what causes drag, they'll probably use that in designs for other vehicles, not land-based vehicles.
Are you thinking Mars?
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Right?
Mars car. Sorry.
I think it's just our need for speed. It's like the humans, like, we have to progress. We have to invent. We have to get better and better all the time.
I know. And now I can understand the need to have parachutes and such to slow down after the speed run.
Oh, yeah.
But if anything goes wrong during the speed run, there is no way to correct from that. No. So I hope that they're putting
Andy
as much attention.
Know. He wouldn't know.
He would not know.
No. And that scares me. Like, I am not a risk taker.
And not a thrill.
Yeah. Well, I like
Says
thrills.
the guy who started his own web show.
Yeah, but that's a totally different kind of thing.
That's
like,
not
yeah, but if cars were your thing,
traveling at like 800 miles an hour.
Oh, that's nothing. Space shuttle does that.
Unless you're in, if you're in space, sure, but on land, in the desert with wheels as you're keeping you on the ground, not for me.
I can imagine the feeling would be incredible. I don't ever want to feel it, but I bet you it would be awesome.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. The Crypto Report and more of this week's top tech stories are coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Get into the Crypto Report for this week as we look back at the past 7 days of cryptocurrency. And as we record this on October 30th, 2019, this is how things looked. So Bitcoin is a big gainer this week. Like, we're talking over $1,700 per coin in gain.
I should have bought one.
It's sitting at $9,196.69 US dollars. Facebook Libra still not trading. We also have Litecoin gaining $9.06 at $58.21. Ethereum also going up, $183.48, up $23 and change from just last week. Wow. And Monero up at $58.72, gaining $6.12. And for a coin that's only worth $58, a gain of $6 is quite a return. Yeah. Then we've got the very small micro coins like Scala at 0.26 ten-thousandths of a cent. And in fact, Turtlecoin is tied at that same value.
Really?
So at 0.26 ten-thousandths of a cent, but Turtlecoin being a bigger gainer because last week it was 0.01 ten-thousandths of a cent down from Scala. And I'm not really sure where Scala is going.
we've seen some problems with that coin because of the fact that they've lost, like they had their name was a trademark of someone else, so they renamed the coin, and this was originally Stellite, and then they renamed it Torque, and then well, that's our trademark. Okay, so now they're Scala, and so it's like, okay, this causes a real, like, this is the only predictable thing, is that causes a loss of confidence in the coin. And people don't really know what's what, and we've got to install new miners, and we've got to learn the new codes and the new symbols, and so I'm not really sure where it's going, but I do see Turtle Coin slightly rising,
slow and steady.
And you never know. I mean, over time, people will forget those frequent name changes as long as it doesn't continue.
If it sticks it out, and if it sticks out, like, okay, let's stick with Scala. Let's say, okay, that's what we are.
Yes.
Not to spend too much time on a microcoin, but the microcoins are really interesting because they're so incredibly cheap. Like, we're talking 0.26 10,000ths of a cent per coin.
Right. So for me, they're far more accessible. Like, I'll joke and say I should have bought a Bitcoin, but really, I mean, I'm far more likely to mine Turtle Coin than I am.
Well, you can mine Turtle Coin with consumer gear. So you don't need an ASIC. You don't need a server farm full of GPUs. No, you just need a standard computer, and you can mine potentially thousands upon thousands of Turtle Coin.
There you go.
With standard hardware, because there's still a lot of supply, and they're really, really cheap.
Yes.
So, now that said, as we always warn on the Crypto Report here at Category5.tv, remember that the cryptocurrency market is always changing. Now, we talk about Bitcoin is a big gainer this week. Next week, it could go way down. So, I mean, we've seen it happen. I mean, Bitcoin was like $20,000+ per coin, and then we're now, like last week, we were down at 7,000. So, anyone who invested when it was 19 lost big time.
A lot.
So, and I say that to warn you that it's incredibly volatile, because the market never closes. It's 24/7, and it can just go either direction at any point. So my recommendation, if you're going to invest, if you're going to crypto mine, or whatever you're going to do to be involved in cryptocurrency, is only spend what you can afford to lose. That's the only safe way to be involved in the crypto market. Sasha, I'm going to throw it back to you for our news stories this week.
Excellent. 2 reports published in the last few months show that malware operators are experimenting with using WAV audio files to hide malicious code. The technique is known as stenography, the art of hiding information in plain sight in another data medium. In the software field, stenography, also referred to as stego, is used to describe the process of hiding files or a text in another file of a different format. For example, hiding plain text inside an image's binary format. Using stenography has been popular with malware operators for more than a decade. Malware authors don't use stenography to breach or infect systems, but rather as a transfer method. Stenography allows files hiding malicious code to bypass security software that whitelists non-executable file formats, such as multimedia files. All previous instances where malware used stenography revolved around using image file formats such as PNG or JPEG. The novelty in the 2 recently published reports is the use of WAV audio files not seen abused in malware operations until this year. The first of these 2 new malware campaigns abusing WAV files was reported back in June. Semantic security researchers said they spotted a Russian cyber espionage group known as Waterbug, or Turla, using WAV files to hide and transfer malicious code from their server to already infected victims. The second malware campaign was spotted this month by BlackBerry Silence. But while the Semantic report described a nation-state cyber espionage operation, Silence said they saw the WAV stenography technique being abused in a run-of-the-mill crypto mining malware operation. Silence said this particular threat actor was hiding DLLs inside WAV audio files. Malware already present on the infected host would download and read the WAV file, extract the DLL bit by bit, and then run it, installing a cryptocurrency miner application named XMR-Rig. This shows that your mundane crypto mining malware authors are growing in sophistication as they learn from other operations.
Wow. Well, that's hard. That's a hard one, right? Because if you go to a website and they have normal WAV file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And you can't stop that. Like, unless if you want to block everything.
Yeah, how would you ever
Well, that's it.
see
You can't block WAV files and JPEGs and bitmaps and pings and
it'll be all like 1995 basic HTML sites, right? Like it's getting weird. Like how do you block this?
But remember that stenography cannot infect your system. What can is that if you have an app that is then able to decode the hidden files within the stenographic file, that's where you run a problem. So how can that be a problem? If you, let's say you deal with pirated software, it's quite likely that they would inject some form of ability to open stenographic data. So for example, let's say you have Photoshop that's an illegal copy. Well, you're going to open JPEG files, or or maybe you've got a WAV editor, or something like that. And so you open the WAV file with that editor, and suddenly you're infected. That's just one example, but it could come from apps. Like apps could enter the App Store that are advertising themselves as, hey, here's a WAV player for your phone, right? And if you're not very careful of the file, like the apps that you install and where you get them from, then that can pose a problem too.
Yeah, it just takes one, right?
Yeah, but you have to. It has to have that decoder in place in order to be able to open the data that is hidden. Otherwise, I mean, you open one of those files, the WAV files, and it will play the audio normally.
Right.
You'll be able to edit it in Goldwave normally, or Audacity. But if you have an app that reads the hidden data, that's
when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I just feel like these malicious players, they're just like one little step ahead, right? So you just you build yourself up and you get comfortable with your security, and they're like, haha, did you think of that?
No.
Oh, no.
Wow. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And that's tough because antivirus can't stop that.
Yeah.
And so it really comes back down to be smart.
Yes.
Be careful and realize that there are social engineering tactics out there to trick you into installing the app that they want you to open the WAV file with. Or the JPEG or whatever it is. So, yeah.
I know it would be so easy to slip into that without having the foresight to question it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Be careful, folks.
Google built an advanced computer that has achieved quantum supremacy for the first time, surpassing the performance of conventional devices. Scientists have been working on quantum computers for decades because they promise much faster speeds. Now that speed has been realized, and it's mind-blowing. Their Sycamore quantum processor was able to perform a specific task in 200 seconds. Now get ready for this. That same task would take the world's best supercomputer 10,000 years to complete. In classical computers, the unit of information is called a bit, and it can have a value of either 1 or 0. But its equivalent in a quantum system, the qubit, short for quantum bit, can be both 1 and 0 at the same time. This phenomenon opens the door for multiple calculations to be performed simultaneously. But the qubits need to be synchronized using a quantum effect known as entanglement, which Albert Einstein termed spooky action at a distance. However, scientists have struggled to build working devices with enough qubits to make them competitive with conventional types of computer.
The word quantum computer is a little bit misleading because it sounds like a computer. And when people think of computer, they think of a phone or a laptop. The truth is the phone and the laptop and even a very powerful supercomputer all operate according to the same fundamental rules. And a quantum computer is fundamentally different.
The classical bit stores information as a 0 or 1, and a quantum bit can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. If you have 2 quantum bits, then there are 4 possible states that you can put in superposition. With 3 qubits, it's 8, 4 qubits, it's 16. It grows exponentially.
The nice thing about quantum supremacy is that this is a very well-defined engineering milestone.
In a nutshell, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show that experimental quantum computers can surpass the best supercomputers in the world.
To actually demonstrate quantum supremacy, we have these 3 steps. First, pick a circuit. Second, run it on the quantum computer. Third, simulate what the quantum computer is doing on a classical computer. We gradually increase the complexity of that circuit At some point, it becomes completely impossible for the classical computer to keep up. Then we say we've achieved quantum supremacy.
Sycamore contains 54 qubits, although one of them didn't work during the test, so the device ran on 53 qubits. Professor Jonathan Oppenheim from UCL, who was not involved with the latest study, says, quote, "It's an interesting test. It shows that they have a lot of control over their device. It shows that they have low error rates, but it's nowhere near the kind of precision we would need to have a full-scale quantum computer," end quote. IBM, which has been working on quantum computers of its own, questioned some of Google's figures, saying, quote, "This is in fact a conservative worst-case estimate, and we expect that with additional refinements of the classical cost of the simulation can be further reduced," end quote. IBM also quells some of the excitement, saying, quote, "Quantum computers will never reign supreme over classical computers, but will rather work in concert with them since they each have their unique strengths," end quote. That said, this is a very exciting leap in quantum computing and is destined to lead to some incredible calculations being performed in seconds rather than millennia.
Wow.
How sore losery are the other?
Oh my gosh.
It kind of comes across that way.
It's not that good.
Oh my gosh.
200 seconds? Meh.
It's all right.
It's all right.
We could have done it in 400.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
You know what? This is why I can never be like a quantum computing scientist programmer.
This is
I don't
why,
understand.
folks. Listen up. This is why.
I don't understand how something can be 1 and 0 at the same time in binary.
Because
like you're either 1 or 0. How can
physics,
you be both?
Sasha. Physics.
As Albert Einstein said, it's spooky.
Yeah, it entangles my brain.
Yeah.
I love it. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Wow.
Whoa.
We're seeing such a shift in technology, and it is pushing towards something new. And what could that be used for? I look at NPU, neural processing units, blow my mind.
Right.
And IBM is correct. Like an NPU it's not a replacement for a CPU. It's something that supplements it. So usually when you have an NPU, you also have a CPU.
Yeah.
But it does other things, and it does them really, really fast. So when I encode video, I use an MPEG encoder card because it will do it faster than my CPU.
Right.
Because or you think about crypto mining with an ASIC. Well, you're using an ASIC specifically to crypto mine at a faster rate.
Right.
So when they find that, hey, what can this really be used for? And use it?
Yeah,
that's mind-blowing. I'll tell you what, our passwords aren't safe anymore.
Oh, no.
You know?
Oh, no, they aren't now.
Like brute forces. Brute forces that typically a computer would not be able to brute force our password in 100,000 years can be done in seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now would security get better as well? Because security could also go through quantum computing.
Can cryptography go through quantum computing? Or is that where the blockchain and quantum computing and neural processing all come together and say, you know, in your face, IBM?
Oh my gosh.
Right.
But that, like, it's like a constant, it's like a leapfrog,
it is.
Right? Like we have to create cryptocurrency in order to create cryptography that is blockchain based and secure.
Yeah.
And then the new processors come out, quantum computing, that can now reverse all that.
You just got to think how this is going to impact everyday life, though. Because if you go back in time when computers are first like starting up, you know, you have the binary system. But now, what are cell phones and all these other, if we still have them, what are they going to be like in 50 years from now?
Yeah.
And if it becomes mainstream, right? Like, sure, now it seems, it's almost impossible. You need so much power. But back then, we look when servers took up like an entire level of a building.
Even think of the 1980s.
Yes. I was not alive.
Think of it, though, for those of us who were. And think about like this.
Right.
Okay. And think about the computers that we had. And now think about the fastest computer in the world at that time.
Yes.
And it's not as fast as what you have in front of you right there.
The computer from War Games. That was a good movie.
And we keep pushing the boundary. I mean, this isn't the only story with it. We had the Bloodhound car, and now we have these, you know, it's human nature. We are always going to try and just grasp at the next thing.
We have to.
And we will.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. I love it.
Yeah. It's
Nice.
mind-blowing. Hey, what can it be used for? Let us know down below.
Big thanks to Roy W. Nash and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category5.tv newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And if you appreciate what we do, become a patron at patreon.com/newsroom. From the Category5.tv newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
And I'm Robbie Ferguson.
And I'm Henry Bailey Brown.